Good morning, Husker fans, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette, and we're back for another episode of the Husker Big Red podcast following a 40-7 win for the Huskers in week one. They covered the spread. Dylan Raiola threw 2 touchdowns. Just about everybody got in the game, so it was a great Saturday for the Huskers. We're going to break it all down. We're going to hand out some game balls, give grades to the players and coaches. We're going to talk about the stock report, and we'll cover some other things as well for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. But before we do that, please make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get in the comments section. Make sure you don't miss any of our future content. And Danny, how are you doing after a 33-point win for Nebraska on Saturday?
I'm doing great. This is the best I felt about a Nebraska game, and I don't know how long, half a year at least. So I'm doing great. A lot of things to smile about, a lot of things to be happy about, and man, what a great way to live. I'm finding that Nebraska games make or break my weekend. So I was very happy this weekend, and I want to keep that train rolling.
Before we get to our grades, I just want to say, or before our game balls, I just want to say it's nice to bask in the glow of a win and actually having a quarterback. Dylan Raiola, plays a game with which Nebraska fans are not familiar because I saw, how many times I've seen Nebraska quarterbacks try to make that throw to Jamal Banks? I've literally seen Adrian Martinez try to attempt that throw like 30 times and never make it a single time. Like there's just so many times I've seen that pass airmailed or thrown 2, 3, 4 yards to the right. I don't know how many times I've ever seen it completed until Raiola threw it to Jamal Banks on Saturday. That was a thing of beauty. And that was just, to me, that was like the icing on the cake. That's when I already knew that he was a dude, but that drive right there just put the icing on the cake for me.
It was an absolute dot right in his hands. Like he couldn't have thrown the ball any better. I'm like, wow. Like I was so impressed. And then the other throw that he made was the one where he felt a little bit of pressure and he changed his arm slot to kind of throw it a little bit lower while he was kind of off balance a little bit, and he made that like side, like I don't know, that Patrick Mahomes throw, that's that sidearm type throw, and it was just an absolute perfect ball. And I was like, whoa, like this is crazy. Like I've never seen this from a Nebraska quarterback before, and man, it was fun to watch.
Yeah, one of the throws that stuck out to me was when it was 2nd and 30 on the first drive, and he lofted it over the linebacker to Fedoni, because last year that would have been an interception.
Yep.
99% of Nebraska quarterbacks would have thrown an interception on that pass, and it was a 19-yard completion, and then boom, the next play was a first down. So the other touchdown pass to Isaiah Nair, like these are throws that we've never seen a Nebraska quarterback make. I don't care what anybody says. There's never, Zach Taylor was a pretty good passer. But beyond that, there has not been very many. Adrian Martinez was more of a dual threat, but all the great quarterbacks in Nebraska history, Turner Gill, Taylor Martinez, Scott Frost, Eric Crouch, Tommy Frazier, they've all been run-based quarterbacks. They could all throw, but that was more of a compliment to what they did. This is the first time Nebraska's had a quarterback with number 1 overall pick talent. That's the kind of quarterback that Dylan Raiola is, and I think we're going to see that even more on Saturday night against Colorado.
That's going to be a fun game. I don't want to get too ahead of the show, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But that's going to be a fun game, and it's very worthy of the night game slot that it's been given. And man, I'm just so excited. I really am. I haven't felt this optimistic about the program in my years of fandom. So I think we're on year 5 for me. You notice I'm starting to get gray hairs. I wonder if there's any correlation there. But no, I'm just so excited about Saturday and Colorado and just this win overall.
Yeah, and I said Nebraska fans are basking in the glow of not only a quarterback but competent football, which is not something we've seen here since circa 2016, 2015. It's been a long time. It's been almost 10 years since we've looked. We saw a team that only had 3 penalties on Saturday. They only had 1 turnover. They actually had 25 punt return yards. UTEP, I think, only had like 40 some plays. It was like a 2-to-1 ratio in terms of plays, where Nebraska was just like, but we're gonna control the football. We're gonna run the ball. Our quarterback's gonna complete some passes, and we're just not gonna let you have it. We're just not going to let you have the football. And all 3 phases, they were spectacular. Malcolm Hartzog gave up the long touchdown pass, and then he comes back and gets an interception. There was a fumble by Dante Dowdell, and then our defensive line just blew up the play and got a safety. So like every time there was a slight hit of adversity, it was just Nebraska was just competent in every single way. And that's just not something that we're used to seeing from this program. It's been a long time, at least.
And you know what? 284 passing yards, 223 rushing yards. It was pretty balanced. So for those who wanted to pound the rock and run the football, there was some of that. For those who wanted to see Raiola and friends air it out, there was some of that too, and it was great to just see all phases of the game on offensively clicking. And I don't know if we're gonna mention him in our next segment here, but shout out to Gabe Irvin Jr. Been battling through injuries throughout his entire Nebraska career. Was able to get 2 touchdowns on Saturday. I love the idea of using him as a goal line back, and I would love to see him rack up several more touchdowns over the course of this season. But it's just great to see him have a contribution that was rather large in a game like this.
Yeah, it was good to see him get in the end zone, and I thought all the backs ran well. So let's get to it. Game balls. Let's go one on offense, one on defense. I guess we probably could give one out on special teams, but
Yeah,
we'll start with offense and defense, and yeah, I guess we can go special teams. Why not? Let's include
yeah.
everybody. We'll be inclusive here. So who's your
Hunters have
offensive?
people too, man.
Who's your offensive game ball go to?
It would be easy to say Dylan Raiola, and that would be kind of the cop-out answer in my opinion. But honestly, Jamal Banks is a dude. Jamal Banks is an absolute stud, and I would almost give it to Isaiah Nayor, because he played well too. But I think I'm going to give it to Banks. Like, he is just so athletic, and we kind of talked about it coming in when he transferred to the program in January. But just to see it live, I mean, the way he jumped over that UTEP defender to get that touchdown before halftime, it was like, whoa. And so, yeah, he's every bit as good as advertised. And quite honestly, I think maybe even a little bit better. For me,
Yeah,
anyway.
I could agree with that. I'm going to go with the offensive line. I'm going to give the offensive line as a group a game ball. 4.7 yards per carry. Yeah, 228 rushing yards. Dylan Raiola was sacked 1 time. There was barely any tackles for loss. Maurice Westmoreland, who we talked up before this game, 10.5 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks. You know what he did on Saturday? Nothing. You could not find his face on a milk carton. He had 2 tackles, 1 solo tackle, 0 tackles for loss, 0 sacks. The offensive line did an incredible job. And if they play like that on Saturday, Nebraska will win the game. No doubt about it.
They did an outstanding job, and they created a lot of clean pockets for Dylan Raiola. They were physical. They didn't allow players to, or the defensive line of UTEP to kind of cave in Raiola's pocket, and they were just outstanding. And shout out to Donovan Raiola. Shout out to the offensive line. We kind of mentioned before the game on Saturday that we wanted to see a bit of an improvement. We saw it on Saturday, and they definitely deserve their flowers because they were outstanding.
All right, well, who's your defensive game ball go to?
My defensive game ball. That's not an easy choice. I'm gonna think on this one. I want to hear yours first because I have a couple in mind.
I'm gonna just go. I'm gonna say the defensive line. The 3. I'm gonna share it between Jamari Butler, Nash Hutchmaker, and Ty Robinson because those guys were such monsters. And the play that set that to me, it was the safety. And it wasn't. Ty Robinson bulldozed his guy back in there. Nash Hutchmaker, bulldozed 2 guys back in there. Jamari Butler, and to me, that play set the tone, for the game. And Marcus Buford said afterward, like Matt Rule, wanted to kind of give a speech to the defense, and Marcus Buford just looked at him and said, "It's all right, coach, we got you." And they went out there and got a safety, and that to me that changed the whole tenor of the game because if UTEP goes down there, because it was right after a fumble too. It was right after a fumble inside the goal line, a turnover on downs after they gave up a long touchdown. It was kind of like, okay, same old Nebraska, and that defensive line was just like, not today. And so those 3, sharing the game balls a little bit. I know that's a bit of a cop out, but I just can't really separate those 3 guys in the way that they set the tone on defense. And you know what? If you've got a quarterback and if you've got a defensive line, you can win a lot of games in college football, in the NFL. So those are probably the 2 things that you need more than anything to win. And Nebraska has both of those things right now.
Makai Bayer will get my game ball. I thought he played outstanding. We talk about those 3 on the defensive line, rightfully so, but I think he deserved my game ball on Saturday. He was a player that really kind of burst onto the scene last year. He started to play really well towards the end of the season, and now he continued that on Saturday. And if he can't continue to play at a high level, then that's just another added weapon for the defense. So it was really great to see him assert himself in the game.
My special teams game ball, I'm going to go Isaiah Garcia Castaneda with 3 punt returns for 25 yards. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but Last year, Nebraska only had 48 punt return yards
Yeah,
total. I'm not
that's a lot
kidding.
for us.
So, I mean, he got like 60% of the punt return yards we got last year. Plus, he caught it every time. He didn't let the ball needlessly hit the ground. He saves, anytime you do that, you save yards. And so I thought that was finally, an improvement. Ed Foley said that he really wanted to improve the punt return. He said it was terrible last year. And that was a good first step on Saturday.
Tristan Alvano gets my game ball because we weren't even sure if he was going to be able to play a couple weeks ago due to, recovering from injury. He made his only field goal. He made all 5 extra points, and he had 8 points in total. So he looked great. And if he can continue that, kind of pace, he could definitely have a bounce back year in comparison to some of the understandably freshman year struggles that he had.
All right, you guys, now we're going to get our report cards out for this game. So we're going to grade offense, defense, special teams, and coaching. Okay, so we're going to have four different grades here that we'll hand out. So offense, Danny, what's your grade for the Nebraska offense on Saturday?
A- because I did have some qualms with the play calling that Marcus Satterfield had. I wasn't ready to call for his head like a lot of fans, but there were just some plays that I was kind of wondering, kind of the throw to Thomas Fedoni behind the line of scrimmage. Was kind of interesting, and the fact that he didn't take more deep shots early. But overall, I thought the offense played great, and I'm not ready to fire Satterfield yet, so A-.
Yeah, I'm just going to go with a straight up A. I mean, 507 yards of offense, 284 passing, 223 rushing. I mean, they could have had 600 yards of offense if they left Dylan Raiola in the game. 30 first downs. They had 83 plays. 83 plays. If Nebraska has the ball for 80, I mean, I love that. I love that kind of football. That's NFL style. And when you have a good quarterback, you can do that kind of thing. Like 12 plays scoring. It's nice to have that 50 play touchdown drive, but it's also nice just to say, hey, UTEP, you're not going to have the ball for about 6 or 7 or 8 minutes. So I'm going to give him an A. The only thing I didn't like was the fumble, obviously inside the 10-yard line. I didn't really have any qualms with the play calling.
But
I'll say that.
that fumble came off of a very good hit. Like his helmet was perfectly placed on the ball. That was a good defensive play too, as much as it was a fumble.
Yeah, for sure. But still can't be giving the ball up inside the 10. But all right. Defense. What was your grade for the defense on Saturday?
A minus again. I mean, the only really bad play was a play that Hartzog gave up, but that was interesting because we got to see a little bit of UTEP's tempo on that drive, and it caught Hartzog off guard, and they were able to score that touchdown. But overall, I thought the defense played great.
Yeah, I'm going to give him another A. I think that forced 2 turnovers. They got the 2 interceptions. The pass rush, I thought, did a pretty good job. UTEP was just like really determined to get the ball out quickly. So, sometimes that can make it a little bit tougher to get sacks. But if you look at, their passing attempts, 26 passing attempts for, let's see how many total, for 150 yards. So that's less than 5 yards of pass attempts. So that's not, or under 6. So that's anything under 7. If you're allowing your opponent under 7 yards per average per attempt, you're doing a great job there. And 56 rushing yards, 2.3 yards per carry. They did a great job on third down. I thought they did a good job handling tempo after that first drive. And, sometimes you are going to get beat deep. That will happen. And Malcolm, came back and did a good job. So, if that's the only touchdown that you give up in a game, like I think that's better than say like a long sustained drive. And they really didn't give those up very much. So I'm going to give them an A, but they still have a couple of things to clean up going into Saturday. But another thing, very few penalties, especially on the defensive side. And I like seeing that.
Yeah, no, it was great to see that. And it looked like they didn't miss a beat from last year. So it was good to see them kind of carry that over and continue to play with that same kind of execution and intensity that Tony White expects.
How about special teams? What do you got?
A+. I was very happy with the special teams. I was extremely happy with the special teams because that's been an area of concern over the last couple seasons. I thought kick returns did great. I thought, field goals are great. Like I said, Alvano really had a strong game, which he needed. And A+. I was very happy with the special teams.
I was happy. I'm going to go just with a straight A across the board. There wasn't, like an explosive dynamic play that would push it to an A+ for me, but you're right. There were no mistakes. Ja'Cory Barney averaged 25 yards per kick return attempt. Brian Buschini, I thought, did a good job when he had his opportunities to punt. So all around, no mistakes. The coverage units were great. So at A all around in terms of the 3 phases. What about the coaching staff? What did you think about just offense, the entire thing, the coaching of the Cornhuskers on Saturday? What grade would you give that?
I'd give that a B plus because, like I said, some of the play calls that Satterfield had early were a little bit questionable, and I'm wondering if that will kind of come back to bite us when we play a better opponent, a la Colorado, in a couple days. But overall, I thought the offensive coaching did really well between like we said, the line, the wide receivers. Shout out to Glenn Thomas. You could definitely see the impact that he's made over the off season. So I'm gonna give it a B plus, and that's not a bad grade at all.
I'll stick with an A. Again, I didn't mind the play calling. I remember the plays that you're talking about. I did. They weren't my favorite, but at the same time, I don't remember that the blocking was all that great. So
It
sometimes,
wasn't. I'll be fair. To be fair, the blocking. I think Nair and Banks were supposed to pick up the block on the play to Fedoni, and they missed it. So, but still,
yeah. So I mean, sometimes like the players got to execute. But yeah, we'd really like to see Carter Nelson in that type of
yeah.
formation. I think that's something we are going to see. It was good to see him get those receptions. But yeah, I feel like this Saturday, it's like when you get that first test in school, right? Your teacher's like just kind of reviewing things. So this wasn't that difficult of a test. So Nebraska got A's across the board, which they probably should have got. We'll see the difficulty, the level of difficulty is going to ramp up this week a little bit. So before we're not really going to talk a ton about Colorado, but let's talk about the stock report. Whose stock is up? Whose stock is down? So Danny, let's pick out one guy each whose stock is on the rise. I guess it could be a position group too, if you want to do it that way. But whose stock is on the rise after this win?
Corey Barney. He was absolutely electric with the play time that he got, and it's hard to believe he's a freshman, right? I mean, he doesn't play like a freshman at all, but he just has that explosive speed. Like you can immediately see it. So for me, the first guy would probably be Corey Barney, and the best part is he's only a freshman, so he's only going to get better.
I'm going to say, obviously Dylan Raiola would be the easy answer, but I'm going to say Ramir Johnson. I think his stock is up. I know that Emmett Johnson had the 42-yard run, but Ramir Johnson actually got more rushing attempts than anybody else. He got 11. He got 50 yards rushing, so 4.5 yards per attempt. And what's interesting to me, he only got one target in the passing game. I am praying to this Nebraska coaching staff to please start throwing this man the ball, especially this Saturday. I don't think Colorado has a guy that can cover him. Like if you have Ramir Johnson against a linebacker, he's going to win that matchup 9 times out of 10. And we saw once he gets the ball in his hands, he's a tough dude to get down. I'm not saying I want him to carry the ball 20 times a game, but like 10, 10, 12 carries, 3-5 receptions. I think he could be a really dynamic player. And I liked what I saw out of him on Saturday.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I just think it's gotten to the point where we have so many options. Like, so some guys are not going to get any targets, but I agree. I mean, you saw in the Michigan game in 2021 how dynamic of a pass catcher Ramir was. So I'm hoping they can give him a role this Saturday.
All right. So who do you see stock is down after week 1?
Malachi Coleman. I mean, when you look at all the weapons at the wide receiver position and the fact that Coleman is still battling back from injury, and I've heard other things. I'm not going to speculate here, but I mean, we are loaded at the wide receiver position. Nair, Banks, Barney are all studs. So, Coleman was the top recruit in the state of Nebraska for the 2023 class, I believe it was. So, he is a good player, but as it stands right now, this team would be fine without him.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I don't think
Uh,
that. I mean, he's 6'5" and he runs a 4.3. There's
yeah,
nobody
he's
else
never
on the
healthy.
team. Yeah,
He's
I mean, I get that, but I wouldn't go that far. I don't want him going in the transfer portal. I mean, I get what you're saying. I know he didn't play on Saturday. I'm not sure why. But I'm not ready to give up on Malachi Coleman because like Isaiah Nair can do great things. He's not the same athlete as Malachi Coleman. There's nobody on this team that is quite as athletic as Malachi Coleman. Now I know he has to put it all together, but he can do things that nobody else can do from athletic perspective. So
and he
I'm
has to
not.
be healthy.
Yeah, I get that, and sometimes it is hard for guys like that. I mean,
Yeah,
to stay healthy, but a guy who I think stock. I mean, yeah, I could agree with his stock is down, but Dante Dowdell. I mean, you cannot give up the football. On this team, Scott Marcus Satterfield said that, and once he caught the ball up, he was in the game one more play after that, and I think that wasn't a coincidence. So I'm not sure what I hope that we see him more on Saturday. I think that we will, but if he fumbles the ball again, like he's going to be in the doghouse maybe for quite a while, and he just got himself out of the doghouse after kind of a lackluster spring.
Yeah, I don't really see him in the doghouse quite yet, and I don't think his stock is down. I just think it was, a learning moment, just not to fumble. Like you said, if he fumbles again the Saturday against Colorado, then yeah, his stock will be down. But I'm not ready to count him out just yet. And I'm not saying that you are. It's just an overall statement.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, they've got three other backs that can do it. I mean, kind of like what you were saying with Malachi at wide receiver. I mean, I agree they don't necessarily need him now, but I don't. I'm saying I think in the future they definitely still need Malachi Coleman in this program because I could see him going somewhere else and being a star. And Dowdell can be he was probably the best running back. Honestly, I mean, Emmett Johnson had the 42-yard run, which was a really good play, but I thought Dowdell looked really good.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if you can't hold on to the football. So that's out of all the things that I saw, that was the one kind of negative. I mean, Hartzog gave up the big play, but those kind of things are going to happen, right? And you should never. I don't. I mean, I know it was a great hit. Hold on to the football, man. Secure the football, and if you can't hold on to the rock, then don't go out on the field. And I just think that that's basically what the coaching staff said. So I don't. I think he's going to get another chance, but I think there's a reason why he didn't go back in the game after he dropped the ball.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see both in terms of Dowdell and Coleman because they are at positions that have a ton of depth. So it'll be interesting to see not what their future is with the program. I don't want to be dramatic like that, but how they kind of fit into, let's just say for now, Saturday. And I'm not even going to say how they fit into the rest of the season, but Saturday,
Yeah, and I just think that with the way this team is set up, you're going to have days where guys just don't, have it. I mean, Jalen Lloyd was in the game on Saturday. He had 2 targets and 0 catches. He made 0 impact. Now does that mean that he's not going to have a good season? Not necessarily. I think there's going to be days where, I mean, Thomas Fadone had 3 catches for 1 yard. You know what I mean? So those are 2 guys who I think can both have big seasons, and I just think with all the mouths to feed in the receiver room, you're going to have some things like that. Now, I am curious why Malachi Coleman was not listed on the injury report and didn't play. You had 107 guys who played, and he did not play. Now, why is that? Hopefully, somebody in the media room will ask Matt Rule that question on today, or I guess he's probably not going to meet with the media today, Tuesday. But yeah, I think that's a pretty interesting that they had him on the depth chart but didn't play him. So
makes me wonder if there's something off the field.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, that's why someone needs to ask. I mean, that's a question that needs to be asked, and because that doesn't, to me, that just doesn't make sense. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it could go back to, well, I don't want to speculate, but I've heard that effort sometimes has been a problem for him and things like that. Like I said, I hate speculating, but this wouldn't be the first time that I've heard something come up about it. Again, we'll kind of talk about it if it ever comes out, but there's been stuff floating around.
I mean, yeah, if he's not hurt and he wasn't listed on the injury report, there's a reason he's not on the field. So I mean, I don't, you're not really even speculating. Like that's just obvious.
Yeah, I just hate talking like badly about kids. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to be that type of guy.
Yeah, I don't think it's talking badly about him. It's just there's 107 guys who played on Saturday. Malachi Coleman was not listed on the injury report, and he did not play. So I think it's fair to ask why. And hopefully Sip or Sean Callahan, somebody asked Matt Rule, because I just think
they won't. They don't ask the tough questions.
I know they won't. I wish they would.
We would, but they wouldn't. Come on now, you're expecting them to ask.
Maybe I would, but then if I got in the same room as Matt Rule, I'd be like, this guy's so cool. I don't know. It's easy. It's easier for me to say.
That they would revoke my press pass or revoke my access. So,
but yeah, it's kind of interesting. But I still believe that Malachi Coleman can make a positive contribution this year, especially when Banks and Nayor graduate. But yeah, it's going to be tougher this year. But I still think, once those guys leave, show me the big body receiver that's a guaranteed good player at Nebraska. I know it's Carter Nelson. I know he's there too, but I just don't want to let a guy who has the tools that Malachi Coleman does, walk out the door. So hopefully they can find a way to get that turned around. And things change quickly. That's the thing about football, man, is you can be in the doghouse one week and then the next week you can be in the penthouse. So, from a team perspective or an individual perspective, it's a lot happens in 1 week. So we'll see where things stand next week.
Well, if we keep having games like we do on Saturday and the targets keep going where they're going, then it'll be no problem to recruit receivers in no time. I totally get what you're saying. I definitely do. And I'm hoping things work out, but just a general statement. If I'm a wide receiver and I see that Patrick Mahomes and Dan Orlovsky and I believe Joel Klatt all shouted out Dylan Raiola, then I'm seriously thinking about coming to Nebraska.
Yeah, we'll have Joe Cloud on the call Saturday. And with that in mind, so let's wrap up the show. We'll talk more. So we're going to do Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, the pregame show. This is the schedule. We have set it. We will follow it. We've tried to figure out the best way. We decided that's it. So there you go, you guys. But what do you think about Colorado? What's your first impression of the Buffaloes?
I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. They can have Travis Hunter, they can have Jimmy Horn, they can have Shedeur Sanders, but that defense does not impress me. And I think as long as the offensive line of Nebraska, continues to block like they have been, I feel very confident in this game because, like you said a ton of times, last year we were like two Jeff Sims fumbles away from actually making it a game, and
just taking the snap, not even a fumble, just a properly executed snap.
People were like, why is Nebraska jizzing their pants over a corner touchdown? Like, that's so routine. Well, when you lose games off of not handling a snap and then you get a back end zone touchdown right on the money, that's why you're jizzing your pants. But anyway, I think Nebraska has a shot to beat Colorado. I really do. I mean, there's no doubt that Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn and Shedeur are absolute studs, but those are only three of the players on the team. You talked about it, I believe, Friday when they didn't even use their running game hardly. So they're a very one-dimensional team, in my opinion. Granted that passing offense is explosive. I'm not trying to minimize that at all, but I feel very confident about where we stand in this Colorado game, more so than I did last year. That's for sure.
Yeah, I feel good because I feel like we're better in the trenches on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't see them running I don't see how really anybody's going to run the ball on Robinson, Hutmaker, and Butler. I mean, those guys are just massive. They literally are a brick wall of like 1,000 pounds almost. Like it's just freaking incredible. I love watching them go out there. It just gives me pure joy watching those guys stuff the run. But anyway, so last year when I looked at this matchup, I thought, we're better in the trenches, but they have the advantage with the skill guys, Horn, Travis Hunter, and maybe you could say that a little, Shedeur Sanders, maybe you could still say that a little bit, but I think Nebraska's definitely closed that gap with not only Dylan Raiola, but look, we've got Tommy Hill back, and he wasn't playing like this last year. You've also got, Isaiah Nayar now, Jamal Banks now. You've got some of these other receivers, Ja'Cory Barney. So I feel like the skill positions, we're much more on par. And the running game, the trenches, I think we're just going to maul those guys. That's going to be a game. No question about it. Shedeur Sanders and those guys are going to make it interesting. But I feel like, the point spread right now is 7 points. I feel like I would take Nebraska, to cover the spread again this week right now.
See, I don't know. We'll do score predictions later in the week, but I think it's going to be a close game. What I will say is I feel a lot better about where this offensive line stands right now than I did last year at this time. And I think that's going to make a huge difference. And, I feel like Shedeur is going to get his numbers. Jimmy Horn Jr. is going to get his numbers. Hunter's going to get his numbers. It's about minimizing the playmakers on, that aren't those three. And I remember, honestly, to kind of bring in another sports reference, Joe Mazzulla, the Celtics, talked about Dallas Mavericks in the NBA Finals, and he said, if we can stop Luka Doncic, if we can stop, the playmakers around Luka Doncic, then we have a shot at winning because Doncic is going to get his. It's all about kind of minimizing the supporting cast. And if Nebraska can minimize the supporting cast, then they have a very, very good chance at winning this game.
Yeah, and I think too, when you're on defense as Nebraska, you make it death, by 1,000 paper cuts. Make Shedeur Sanders complete like 40 passes. Don't give up the big, don't let him hit a 70-yarder to Horn or Travis Hunter. Make him go into the red zone. And then, if you can force him to kick a field goal or two down in the red zone, that's where Nebraska is going to win this game, in my opinion. And just taking care of the ball. And then hopefully at some point, Shedeur gets frustrated or forces something and maybe get a turnover, maybe get a strip sack. He's hard to turn over, but he also isn't going to face many defensive lines as good as this. And it's going to be, I tell you what, it's going to be, if Colorado's in 3rd and 7 and long all day, it's going to be tough. Although they were there last year and he ate us alive. So I can't say that, he did it last year without a running game, but this year, Nebraska is going to be able to play complementary football with its offense.
Well, on that point where he converted, 2nd and long plays, if you're going to tackle him, make sure you wrap up and tackle him. Don't allow him to escape and give him extra opportunities. Because one of the things he's really good at doing is planting his feet and making quick reads on the run. I tell you what, I'm so impressed with how he does that. He can escape pressure, plant his feet and then throw absolute darts. And that's a staple of his game, more so, I think, than staying in the pocket. So if you're going to try to go after Shedeur Sanders and get sacks, make sure you wrap him up. Make sure you complete your tackle and make sure you get him to the ground, because if you don't do that, it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because like there's a lot of annoying things about Colorado and their personalities or whatever, but when you get down to it, like the Shedeur Sanders and Hunter and Horn, like they're some of the best players in the country, so you got to take them seriously. And
I will say, before we get to recruiting nuggets, one thing, they like to play a little bit dirty, especially Shiloh Sanders. I saw some sideline action on Thursday, so don't take stupid penalties. I think that'll be important.
And then, yeah, last but not least, I think the most noteworthy thing with recruiting to talk about the visit of Christian Jones. There's some future guys, 2026 and 2027 guys, but Christian Jones is, talked about how Nebraska is focusing on the in-state recruits, and he told Steve Wiltfong he will be back for the Colorado game. So I think that's a very positive note for the Huskers.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy visitor day for Nebraska, and the fact that Christian Jones is coming back for the Colorado game means that it's a very good sign, and we better show up. But no, there's a couple of 2026 running backs. There's Christian Jones, so it's going to be a busy recruiting day, and I like where Nebraska sits with Jones still. I mean, the fact that he hasn't made a decision yet. I know we've talked previously that he will take a little bit longer in his recruitment, but yeah, I like the fact that he's coming back. It's going to be a great atmosphere. The fans are going to be absolutely crazy. So the fact that he's coming back is great.
Yeah, Nebraska over the weekend, had a bunch of in-state guys. Like Jace Reynolds is probably one that people really know. Matt Erickson, or I think I have that right, in the 2027 class. But so they didn't. Most of their visitors are going to be coming this weekend, though. Like you've got double-digit guys in 2025, 2026. Yeah, Matt Erickson visited last weekend. He's going to be visiting this weekend. So, lots of guys coming. And yeah, as far as Christian Jones, Michael Terry's going to be visiting still. He hasn't committed yet. So he hasn't committed. And Texas just got another like 5-star receiver. So I'm like wondering if that's going to impact things.
Well, it makes me go ahead.
I just was saying, I wonder if that's going to impact his decision at all.
Well, I was going to say, it makes me wonder if they know something that we don't yet in terms of, they're tired of waiting around for Terry, or they know that he's not really interested in Texas. That's my kind of read on that.
Or maybe they're just lucky enough to have, we get 3 5-star receivers. We're Ohio State now.
That's true. That's true. And I'll tell you, not to make this a long tangent, but Jeremiah Smith of Ohio State, like, man, talk about impact freshman. He had a great day Saturday.
He's good. Yeah. I mean, when I predicted Big Ten Player of the Year I still think Raiola can beat him out for that, but he's the guy I was like, it made me think about it. But I just think
that's not a bad guy to lose to if you're Dylan Raiola and you end up not winning the award. I mean,
It's true. Quarterbacks just get that. So I mean, it depends how Nebraska does, and I feel like his hype train will lead him there. But yeah, the Jeremiah Smith hype train is going to get up pretty soon. But yeah, as far as the Christian Jones thing, I really feel like it does. I think he wants to look at these teams, Oklahoma and Miami and Nebraska, and I think he's just looking for a reason to commit to Nebraska right now, to be honest with you. And I think if they beat Colorado with that atmosphere, I think he's going to come. I think he'll go to Nebraska soon. So I really feel like he likes everything about it, but I just feel like he doesn't want to go to a rebuilding job or that type of thing. And Miami looks like a damn good team after what they did Saturday. Oklahoma is Oklahoma. And I feel like if Nebraska can just get a big win, I feel like that would go a long way with Christian Jones.
I agree. And, you look at just two. Also, I saw a graphic last week where Nebraska was in the top 10 in NIL, money and NIL collectives. There we go. So, I mean, they're willing to spend, and it might take some money to do that, but I feel really good about where Nebraska stands.
And then, so we'll wrap it up. But quickly before we do, you guys, Scott Frost back in the coaching world with the Rams. So I just want to say to Scott, he is was a great player, was not a great coach. 16-31. I've said he's the worst Nebraska head coach of all time. I still believe that, but he still won this team a national championship. So I will always root for Nebraska, guys. I hope he gets back on his feet, and I think this is a good start for him.
Yeah, and as much as we don't like what he did in Nebraska, I don't wish him badly as a person. I think he'll be able to kind of talk about landing on your feet. Getting a job in the NFL is certainly a good step. So I mean,
Especially as
I'm
an analyst, I think will be good.
yeah,
This is with the
absolutely. I
Rams,
mean,
if I
he's
didn't say that. So
yeah,
analyst
yeah.
with
I
the
mean,
Rams.
yeah. He's a brilliant offensive mind. It's close to home in Arizona, so I think this is a great spot for him, a perfect role for him. And honestly, I wish him well, and I hope he finds another good job somewhere else too and gets promoted.
I think so. Yeah, just get his foot back in the door, and maybe he can be, an NFL offensive coordinator someday, and
Yeah,
just kind of work his way up from there. But
yeah,
I will always appreciate the effort he gave us on the field. Was a great player for Nebraska, a great Nebraskan. And on that note, guys, we'll wrap it up. It kind of covered a lot of ground here today, but we're going to come back on Thursday. That's we're going to really break down Colorado, get our keys, our predictions. Saturday morning, we'll have our pregame chat because I know you guys are going to be pumped up for the game. So that's the schedule for this week. And enjoy your Labor Day. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, go Big Red.
go Big Red.